Hello, my name is Jackson England, and I am a third-year law student at Penn State Law. I'm currently in the Manglona Lab for Gender and Economic Equity. For the lab's Witnesses to Herstory project, we are capturing the personal experiences of women during a dynamic time in the United States. Today, I have the privilege of welcoming Dolores England to join me. She is a former educator, current real estate agent, and proud grandmother. Thank you, Mrs. England, for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
I want to start by asking you a little about your childhood. I know you were born in New Jersey. When you were a little girl in the 40s and 50s, what was your family like?
Very close knit. We had a very close knit family. Um, Sundays were big family dinners. Everybody had to be there. Went to mass first. It was nice. It was nice growing up.
What did your mom and dad do?
My mom was a stay-home mom. My father was an administrator for the city of Hoboken at that time. Um, but my mother never worked after she started having children.
Do you know what she did before she started having kids?
I think she worked as a seamstress, in a sewing factory. That's what most people did years and years ago.
What were some of your mom's roles around the house?
What were some of her roles? Mother, uh, helper, cook, dishwasher, housekeeper. A
And how
typical,
about your dad?
he cooked at times too, and he went to work. He used to, when he wasn't working, he'd go for a long walk. He liked to walk. He's walked out of Hoboken into other cities for a few hours, but he stood up straight when he walked, like this, always.
How many siblings did you have? How many kids did your parents have?
Total of four. They would have had eight, but my mother had twins that passed away when they were born. One lived 11 hours, the other one 11 days. At the beginning, she thought both could, she had two, even though the one that was 11 days, they used to bring her and say, this is this one, this is Anne, this is Nancy. These were her first births.
Mhm.
And then she had a boy baby that was born, and I think the baby was 13, 14 pounds at birth and strangled at birth. Years ago, they delivered in the house. They didn't realize what it was like, you know, like they do now. Now they would be able to help.
And then after that, your parents kept trying to have kids?
Yeah, then they had my two brothers, my sister, me, and then after me, my mother didn't realize she was having a baby, and she did a lot of household chores. She used to hang clothes out on a line out of a window, like this, and she had a miscarriage.
Do you know what caused the miscarriage?
I guess too much strain on her body because she was busy always cleaning up and cooking and doing work. Yeah.
What were some of your parents' expectations for you and your siblings?
They just wanted us to be happy. They didn't push college, although three out of the four of us did go to college. My one brother did not because he was a nervous person, so that won't work for him.
When you were a child and you were looking ahead, what did you see yourself doing?
As a little girl, I always thought I wanted to be a model or a movie star, which most kids did then. But then I realized I thought I wanted to teach, be a teacher. And that's what eventually I did. At one point, I wanted to be a lawyer, but that I was nervous about so much schooling after college. although I did wind up going for my master's and then some. So I did go almost 3 years after college. So I guess I could have done law school. When I was in college, a girlfriend and myself, when our classes were over, we used to go to the county courthouse and sit in on cases. We used to,
Do you remember what prompted that, why you both went?
because we both liked law. And I had thought, I told you I wanted to be a
Yeah.
lawyer, but
Backing up a little bit, you said that you switched from wanting to be kind of a model or a movie star to a teacher.
mhm.
What made you want to be a model or movie star? Do you remember, seeing any women in
On
movies?
TV, yeah, you used to watch television and the models were always so pretty and the TV stars, you know, used to gawk at TV and how pretty women were. We were very plain. My family was a very plain family. My mother never really put makeup on or eyelashes or anything like that, but she smiled all the time.
Do you remember any movies or shows in particular that jump out to you?
Right now, I can't remember. If I thought about it long enough, I may remember before the end of our talk.
Okay. Okay. And then you said you wanted to switch into teaching. Do you remember anything that kind of triggered your interest in education and teaching?
I thought it was a nice field. My sister was going to be a teacher. I thought maybe I could be a teacher because I liked when I was in school, some of the teachers were very nice to me. And I thought maybe I could be nice to other children.
Do you remember what made your sister interested in teaching?
No, I don't know. She was a good teacher, though.
Mm.
She was a very bright girl, even and what I think she was brighter than I was. And she went into teaching and just loved it.
Do you remember anything about grade school that, kind of gave you an interest in teaching?
Some of the teachers that were very nice to me in grade school. One of the things I do remember, and don't laugh, the first grade in the reading book, I took a crayon and colored pictures on in the book. I got in trouble for that too. I thought I was being cool.
Mm. You said some of your teachers were very kind to you. Do you remember anything more about these teachers? Do you remember their gender?
Most of them were female. At that point, I don't think there were a lot of male teachers in school when I was young. You need anything? Mainly, no, thank you. Mainly women.
Do you remember anything else about grade school? Maybe how students would dress?
Not the way they are now, that's for sure. Um, most, I don't think we wore pants to school. I think we always wore dresses then, little girly dresses, not short, not long, just up to your knee. Years ago, I remember my mother buying me a lot of plaid dresses. I don't think I'd wear them now, but at that time I did.
What were plan dresses?
Plaid,
Plaid.
plaid.
Okay. Uh, so now that we've spoken a little bit about your childhood, why don't we start moving into your high school years? You started at Hoboken High School in 1959.
I
Was this a
started,
public school?
yes, I started, the name of the school at that point was A.J. Demarest High School. And then eventually they built a new school. The new school became Hoboken High, and A.J. Demarest became a middle school.
How many students were there?
Oh, gosh, we had big enrollment. Um, They were like maybe 500 per class, freshmen, 600 maybe.
Were your older siblings in the same school as you?
Yes, but my sister graduated before me. She would be the closest one to my age. My two brothers, when I was younger, they graduated school.
How how far apart were you and your siblings age-wise?
My brother is almost 10, my oldest brother is almost 10 years older than me. Uh, and my other brother is 8 years older. My sister was 5 years older.
Were all of your siblings moved out when you were in high school?
No.
Did they live at home with you and your mom and dad?
Yes, years ago, nobody moved out and got their own apartment, or my brother commuted to college. My sister did, I did. None of us went away to school. At that time, I don't think my parents, maybe they couldn't afford it, but they didn't believe in sending people away. They wanted the kids home.
When you were in high school, what kind of classes did you take?
Oh, just regular, like nothing's earth-shattering. English, math. First was algebra for a year, and then geometry and trigonometry. That was high school. And then just regular classes.
Besides the regular classes, were there any extracurricular kind of classes?
It was a music class, yes. We went to music class and we used to sing. The teacher, male teacher, used to play the piano, and we used to sing, sit in like an audience and sing, which was nice.
Were there any classes where mostly only men would be taking the class, and then classes where mostly only women would be taking the class?
At that time, majority you had a mixture of men and, girls and boys, men and women. Yeah, at that time that there were, you know what, I used to see a lot of men taking, um, what was the class? It's like an architecture class where they used to do drawings and use a ruler and try, I didn't do those things.
What gender were most of your teachers in high school?
In high school, they were mixed. There was some men and some women, mixture of each. Some were older, a few younger ones, and the younger ones always like gave you a little bit of oomph when you went in. They excited you a little bit more.
Can you speak a little more about that? What would they do that would be so, exciting?
When you came in, they greeted you and they made it seem like today's class was going to be different than, you know, a lot of the other classes. They always build up your spirit a little bit to want to sit there and learn at that time.
Besides classes, did you participate in any clubs or sports or other extracurriculars in high school?
Uh, I tried out for cheering. Oh no, majorettes, not cheering, majorettes. And I did like they gave me a spot, but I wasn't as good as some of the others. But I liked it. And I loved the gym classes.
What would you do during your gym classes?
We'd play kickball or volleyball, dodge. We used to play dodgeball too.
Would those
Um,
games be a mix of men and women, or were men and women separated?
at one point that we were separated. Then near the end, we started doing a mix, but some of the men used to throw the ball like you didn't want to get hit with it, that's for sure. But you
Did
wanted to
your,
be a star. So
sorry, can you say that again? I
you
think I,
wanted to be a star, so you kind of put up with it if you got hit with the ball.
Hmm. Did your school enforce a dress code?
We had to have certain length dresses. Um, they didn't enforce it with it was just a matter of fact, kind of.
Can you speak a little more on about that?
Well, I don't remember wearing pants. Maybe like junior year people started wearing pants outfits, not just pants and a tucked in blouse. You wore like a jumper top with pants same color, you know. You look nice. Nowadays, they don't look that way when I see them go into high school as I pass. Some of the very tight pants, and you don't see, years ago, you didn't see that.
Do you know if that was because your high school had a specific policy against that kind of dress, or if it was just more of a social norm?
I think it was more of a social norm.
The year you graduated was the same year the Equal Pay Act of 1963 was passed. This law required people to be paid the same regardless of gender or race. Do you remember people talking about this law at the time?
No, I don't remember it.
Okay. What kind of things, what kind of media were you reading, listening to, and seeing at the time?
Mainly TV. That's all I think we had then. Now and then a radio. But I think I did remember hearing about that wages, but I guess I put it out of my mind.
Did you read or hear about To Kill a Mockingbird when it came out in 1960?
Yes, I remember hearing about it. I never truthfully read the whole thing. I saw a movie on it later.
Would any of your friends, peers, teachers speak about the book at all?
Very little.
Mm, okay. After you graduated high school, you went to Jersey City State College, correct?
When I first graduated high school, I went to work in Manhattan for a few months, which I liked. I liked going on the train every day. And then I decided I didn't want to do that for, work with 100,000 people in the same building. I worked
What
for
were
a home
you,
insurance company. Like it's just like whatever you do, clerk. It was nice, and we all ate lunch in the cafeteria, but I wanted to do more than that. So that's what made me apply to college. When I got accepted, I quit the job in New York.
Jersey City State College is a public school. Can you tell me a little bit about your classmates and the uh, body of students overall?
A mixture of girls and boys, men and women, whatever. And everybody was like from city, either Hoboken or Jersey City, Union City. Nobody lived in it like kind of like a suburb.
Who did you spend most of your time with in college?
I had a couple of good girl. I had a girlfriend who I'm still friendly with till now. We went to college together, and we even taught together for the first couple of years in Newark, New Jersey.
Where would you spend most of your time in college?
In the cafeteria when we weren't in class.
What would you do in the cafeteria? Would you just chit chat?
Yes, chit chat, munch on pick 'em foods. And then we discuss what we were going to do that weekend or how cute that boy was or that boy, things like that. And trying to make yourself known a little.
What program were you in college?
What program? Oh,
What was your major?
kindergarten primary education, meaning K 1, 2, 3. Most of my courses were geared toward lower children, little children.
So when you started college, you started it knowing you were going to be an educator and that you wanted to be a teacher when you graduated.
Yes.
Did you notice that there were more men or women in your major with you?
In my major were more women because it was lower grades. A lot of men wanted, they wanted to teach biology or high school things. But there were a lot more women in the low who wanted to teach lower grade.
Did you notice that in just teaching majors overall, all ages, was there a mix of men and women?
Yeah, as like upper grade, like general elementary and high school specialties, they were a mixture of men and women. Even like there were a lot of, when I first graduated and I started teaching, they were like men that were fifth grade, fourth grade. Some of the best teachers were male and they were fourth or fifth grade way back when I first started.
While you were at college, the Civil Rights Act passed your first year. Do you remember speaking to anyone about this law when it passed?
A little bit, not much. People that I was friendly with talked about everyday things, what you were wearing, what you were going to buy next. Not as educational as it should have been, but I didn't realize it at the time.
Do you remember anything happening on or around campus because of the law?
No, not at the time. Everybody just everybody seemed to get along. There were no like ex, ex people making excitement. No,
After you finished college, you got a master's in education at St. Peter's.
later, yeah, a few years later, I taught first for a while.
Where did you teach in between?
I taught in Newark for 2 years, and then I switched and taught in Hoboken. I thought I was going to move with a girlfriend, like, and live in Elizabeth, a town over from Newark, and get our own apartment. That never materialized. So it was easier just to come back to Hoboken to teach. So that's what I did. And I stayed teaching in Hoboken through my whole master program. Um,
Going back in time a little bit, starting with that first job in Newark, that was at Peshine Avenue School. Is that
yeah,
right?
yes.
Do, do you remember how you found the job? How you came across it?
I did student teaching there for a couple of months before I graduated, and I liked it. It was a total uh, black school with there was 2,000 black students and one white student in the whole school, two buildings together. A lot of the teachers were black,
You
most
said
of
that
them.
mostly women. You said that you really liked working there. Do
Yes.
you remember what you liked about it?
They were always so friendly. The kids were adorable. I mean, there were things they used to say that I guess their parents would have killed them if their parents knew what they were saying. But they used to say, my uncle was sleeping with my mommy, and then daddy came home. It was very, very interesting. Things I never heard growing up in my house. So I was really, but and when I taught in Newark, that's when there was some for a month or so there were riots. We were off school for a week because there were riots in the city.
Do you remember what triggered some of the riots in the city?
I guess the multicolored differences.
Understood. When you moved to Grant, right? That was the school in Hoboken.
I I got hired in Hoboken and I was in Brant and they put me in the kindergarten classroom. I was more like the teacher's age. She was an older teacher and she wouldn't let me teach the kids. She'd tell me to sit over there and do this or do that. But I felt like an aide, a teacher's aide.
How did that make you feel in the moment?
Crummy, crummy, like I wasn't teaching. I was just like listening to her and she was calling all the shots. So and then eventually they moved me out of that class and put me in a different school after like 6 months. And then I had my own classroom in a different school, in a school in Hoboken that most people didn't want to teach in because it was in the kind of like the slum area of Hoboken. But I
Do
loved it.
Backing up a little bit, do you remember what made you decide to leave Newark and go to Hoboken?
The fact that I had a girlfriend and I used to travel together from Hoboken to Newark. And she got married and she moved with her husband closer to Newark, so I was driving alone. And I guess I went through three cars in a year and a half. I dropped the transmission. I had an accident. You know, car broke down. It was just a little crazy. So
So
I thought best to come to Hoboken.
at that time, because in terms of our timeline, you had already graduated, you had worked in Newark for a little bit, and now you were moving to Grant. When in this time frame, because I know it was somewhere in here, when did you get married?
Oh gosh. Let's see. I taught when I think I was teaching at Connors. That was number nine school in the so-called slum area of Hoboken. I think I met uh my husband, boyfriend, and then we started going out. And I thought I was a big deal because I said, I don't know you, and I know everybody in Hoboken. And he laughed. But he was 4 years older than me, so maybe that's why I didn't know him. Because he went to Demorest High School also. And he worked for Maxwell House when I met him.
What made you move schools once again, now from Grant to
Grant,
Connors?
Brant to Connors, because
Grant.
Brant, I was with that kindergarten teacher, and she was telling me that I couldn't do, I wasn't really teaching. I was more like a student to her. So Connors, I had my own classroom. So, and I knew some of the teachers in Connors, so it was nice.
How did you know those teachers?
Th from when I went to college or just from being in Hoboken, you know, at that point, Hoboken people knew a lot about each other. As I said, very few people went away to school. If they went to school in the city, they still lived home and commuted. I went to Jersey City and then St. Peter's, but a lot of people did that for graduate school. But when we lived in Hoboken, you knew a lot of people, whether they lived 2 blocks away from you or 4 blocks away, you knew who they were. And you became friends. And so I felt more at home going to Connors School. That's where I taught. I taught a long time there. And then I applied for a transfer later on. That was after I was married, though.
And at what point during this time did you apply for your master's from St. Peter's?
Um, I think, did I apply? No, I think I may have had one child already, my oldest son. And then I went for my master's. He was like 4 or 5 when I was going for my master's. And then while I was in my master program, I got pregnant. So I had to take a little couple of months off to have a baby. And I had my second child. And I loved it, even though, I had kids. My mother used to watch my children when I went to school. I tried to do it early evening so that it was easier for my mother with somebody to watch. Years ago, you didn't leave your children with a sitter, you left it with a family member.
Do you remember why that was?
Just the way we were brought up, I guess. I don't know. I don't know. I never stayed with a sitter when I was growing up. One of my parents stayed home or an aunt was with me, but never just a sitter. Like, when my kids were little, I did get a sitter, but not as often as, not when I was young.
I'd like to take a little bit of time to talk about your experience in St. Peter's. St. Peter's is a Jesuit school.
Yes,
You were raised Roman Catholic.
yes.
What pulled you to a Jesuit school?
Well, first of all, everybody knew it was a good school. It was local. Um, my oldest brother went there also. for, he went undergrad, I think, there. Maybe he did graduate work there too. I don't remember now. But everybody knew about it. And I, when I went there, I found the professors to be the nicest people.
You told me you were 15 credits away from a doctorate. I wanted to ask you, why did you stop the degree?
I had 4 kids. I was busy. And I just, rather than go back, which I should have, looking back at it now, I'm sorry I didn't. And my husband used to say, "You're 15 credits short of a doctor. I could call you Dr. Delo." That's what he wanted to call me. But I just never, I needed a couple of courses, 5 courses. I could have taken them. At that point, it would have been hard. I was just, I guess, too lazy to do it. Although
But at this moment in time, you were a mother of four,
mhm, you know,
and were you also working while you were doing your master's?
yes.
So you were a mother of four, you were working, you were pursuing your master's degree, almost at a doctorate, and you're telling me you think you were lazy because you decided to stop?
Not to go for the other 5 courses. I should have, looking back at it, it would have been nice. I mean, yes, it would have improved my salary, but I did get paid at a master plus 45 level, which they gave me extra money for that each month.
Okay. It's my understanding that your master's in education was related to computer science. Can you help me understand that aspect of your master's program a little better?
That was the funniest thing. At that point, I was in Wallace School and I taught computer classes. I was starting to teach computer classes, so I thought it best to go into that field when I was getting my master's, although I'm not very good at it. I'm still not a good computer person. I laughed, and my husband always laughed, saying, "You couldn't possibly get a master's in computers." I did, but at that time, it was book smart. I read the book, studied, I got good grades. I got all good grades when I was getting my master's. But everybody did. And as I said, it was such nice professors. Few of them used to drive us home from college at night, which was nice, rather than take a car or a bus or whatever.
What made you want to pursue this computer science program?
It was new, it was upcoming. Everybody was talking the world of computers, the age of science and computer science. So I thought it'd be good. Unfortunately, I didn't apply myself as well as I should have. I always took everything with a grain of salt. Okay, all right. I studied when I had to study, and the rest of the time I didn't.
After you finished your master's degree, you were still working. Where were you working at that point?
I was at Wallace School in Hoboken.
Wallace School in Hoboken, and what grades were you teaching there?
I taught third. At first, I taught first. I taught pre-K. Oh, yeah, I taught pre-K for 1 year, 4-year-olds. But then they moved me into first grade for a while, third grade. I never taught higher than third, and then just computers as an elective, like when you're a sixth or seventh or eighth grade. And then finally, I started to teach special reading class for children that had difficulty in reading, weren't getting the grades. I used to go into someone else's classroom and they used to designate maybe 4 or 5 kids that really needed help. So we used to sit in the back and try learning something that the teacher couldn't get across to them. So I did that.
And after a few years, you wound up uh, switching careers and becoming a real estate agent.
I did it with, in addition to teaching.
In addition, for how many years were you doing both?
Oh, goodness, probably 10, 12 years. Yeah,
What pulled you into real estate?
I had friends who owned a real estate company, so if after school, sometimes after teaching, if the kids was somewhere, I'd go visit their real estate office, say hello, answer the phones for them, and I got involved in it a little. So they said, "Go for your license, go for your license." And before I even went for my license, they allowed me to rent somebody an apartment and paid me for it. So I kind of liked getting the extra money. So then I said, okay. So I went to real estate school. I guess for at that point it was so many hours that you had to put in. And I used to go like Tuesday and Thursday night and Saturday, so many hours for like 4 weeks, and then took waited a bit and then took the test. And I passed the test and became a realtor, which I still do now. I just had an inspection this morning. A client who happens to be a relative of mine is buying the condo that I took them to because I saw it advertised as an open house. So I let them come and see it and they liked it. And they put an offer and then they went into a little bit of an escalating bid war, but they got it. So today was the inspection. It's nice and it's near me. So
You mentioned that your friends owned this real estate company. How did you know these friends? Were they longtime friends?
yeah, they lived around the corner from me, and my oldest son and their son, they only had the one son, were friends. They went to grammar school together, high school, different colleges, but they played baseball as kids, you know. All through high school, they played baseball, and they even played in college. Um,
So then these friends that kind of pulled you into the office,
yeah.
were they mostly men, women, a mix?
Man and his wife. And in fact, I'm still in the same office. The man passed away a couple of years ago, and the son now, who is my son's age, is the broker or the head of the business. And my friend's wife still works there. She comes in, she didn't doesn't she didn't keep her license, but she answers phones and gives advice, stuff like that.
Were there other reasons beyond the money for the career switch?
Well, I liked being with these other friends too. We used to go out as a foursome, my husband and myself, and the couple who owned the real estate. We went to Aruba with them several times. They introduced me to Aruba. I never had gone before. Um, and so, and we're still friends. We used to go out a couple of times a week for dinner. And
You said that, or you told me previously that some realtors had come and gone, that many realtors tend to move in the business, but that you didn't. You stayed put in this office. Can you tell me a little bit about why you decided to stay there?
well, because I knew them, I felt bad, like kind of leaving them. And when you work somewhere for a while, and because I was like kind of their head honcho in the office, they knew me and they entrusted me with a lot of the things that I felt good about being like kind of like a head. And I never bothered to move. There were times I wanted to, sometimes people rub you the wrong way, but that I overcame that and I still stayed. Now I'm nearing the end of my real estate career, another year or so. And then I maybe just stay home and travel or do something exciting. But yeah, that's why I've stayed. And
It
even,
sounds like loyalty then was a big part
yeah,
of it. You felt very loyal to these folks.
and I
Did you do you know where this that kind of commitment to loyalty came from?
maybe it was instilled in us growing up. My parents were always loyal to my father, to whoever hired him. And I guess it just got passed down through generations. But I'm still friendly with a lot of the people that used to work in my office that no longer they work in other offices. Some of them have become major realtors, not like me, but big time. But first of all, a couple of them were men, a couple of them women too, but they put their heart and soul into it. I guess where I do it, I enjoy it. I used to work 7 days a week. Now it's cut back to I only go in the office 5 days. And if I miss a day here or there, that's okay too. But
I'd now like to spend a little bit of time talking about your marriage and your family life. So let's jump back in our timeline a little bit. You got married in 1969. Did you always know you wanted to get married?
oh, when I was a little girl, yeah. At that time, most girls wanted to get married. And my parents liked the guy I was going out with, and he was very good, really a good guy. He only passed away not too long ago, a few months ago, but they liked him. My whole family liked him. And he was a Hoboken boy also. The only thing he didn't have was a college degree. I made him go back, finish his college. He started in Wagner in Staten Island and then left, but before I met him, I made him go back, finish. So he did go, he got his undergrad degree at St. Peter's and his graduate degree at Fordham in New York City. He got an MBA.
And he
And
wouldn't have gotten even his bachelor's had it not been for your encouragement.
I, I don't think so because he had dropped out of, and he was just working for Maxwell House. His parents were lovely. They weren't, well, years ago, no, most parents weren't college graduates. My parents weren't, but my siblings were. And he was the oldest, and he had two sisters, and neither of the sisters went to college, secretarial school, and went to work as a secretary or in an office. But I told him if I finish college, he has to finish. So he did it. And then he went to Fordham. I guess I had already had at least one child, maybe the second. That's when he got his MBA. He went at night for 2 years or a year and a half and graduated Fordham with his master's in business. And he moved up the ranks in his job. And then when his job at Maxwell kind of folded, he went to work for the city of Hoboken. He was business administrator, stuff like that. He belonged to a couple of city organizations where he was a director here and a director there. So he became well known. And he also became a horse player. He loved the horses.
Did you like the horses as well, or
I liked them, but not the way he did. He used to watch them on TV. He had a group of friends that liked them. They went to visit Kentucky Downs and whatever else, all different horse stadiums where horses ran. Now, I would go to a casino. That's more recently, though. I didn't do that growing up either. But yeah,
when
it,
did you realize that you liked casinos?
I guess the first time, second time I went, I thought, oh, this is interesting. When I went to Aruba with the couple that had the real estate, we used to go and play roulette. And I loved roulette. But at that time, I guess money was a little easier, but in order to play roulette, you can't just put $20 down on the table. You have to put money and go with chips so you can spend more money quicker. So, but I still play roulette every now and then,
What did you like so much about roulette?
seeing if my numbers come out and making the money. I used to play my kids' birthdays majority of the time on my birthday. Yep. And sometimes I did nicely on it. Lately, Then I switched to slot machines because now they started doing bus trips from Hoboken to Atlantic City or other casinos. And I used to play slot machines. And there you could spend 40 or $60 and win sometimes. I went on a cruise with a group of people about 5 years ago, my very first group cruise, girls, and a couple of guys who were married to one of my girlfriends. And we were going out to dinner on the boat. We went on the boat on a Sunday out of New York. On Monday, we were getting ready to go to dinner. I said, all right, I'll be in the casino for a little while until our dinner reservation may have been 6, and this was 5:30, 5 o'clock. So I went and played a machine, and I hit 9 quick hits. They immediately came over and paid me $3,000. Didn't ask my name, didn't ask for ID, so there was no tax involved, and I loved it. What a good feeling that was. I took the money, put it in the safe in the room, and I used my own money to gamble the other nights. And since then, a couple of times on a ship, if I was on a ship, I won 300, 900 the last time I was on a ship. It's just fun.
From our conversation so far, it sounds like money has throughout your life been an important factor in your decision making, and in uh, your career, your profession, your family. Can you tell me a little bit about where that kind of comes from in your life?
Well, growing up, we had very little money. I went with my mother to New York. She was hawking her wedding band, the extra,
Hawking.
yeah, like selling her wedding band in a place in New York that took jewelry when I was little. So we never had a lot. I wanted a bicycle. One Christmas, I got a John Nagy drawing kit, which was far from a bicycle. My parents just didn't have the money. So I always knew that money was kind of important to have it. Not that I went crazy for it, looking to get it, but I enjoyed the gambling is enjoyable, whether you lose or win. But sometimes when you win, you feel good. But yeah,
Do
yeah.
you have any other stories from your childhood or moments from your childhood where you remember thinking to yourself, oh, money is important. Money's important for our family.
Not as much then, no. When I was younger, no. As I said, I didn't realize that we couldn't get a lot of the things that I wanted. And I never had a new bicycle the whole time I grew up, where I made sure when my kids asked for a bicycle, they got a bicycle for a Christmas or a birthday. I never got one. I got a hand-me-down from a friend of a friend of a friend, which was okay. I didn't realize any different, but I never got new. And we never went on trips because my parents, A, never went on a plane. They went on a plane later in life with one of my brothers, but we never went on vacations like down the shore or up the mountains. We never did that. We were home all the time. My mother cooked every night. Um, that's really all we did. So I wanted to do more with my kids. I wanted to take them on trips and I wanted to give them new things. And it worked out fine so far.
So I think that's a great segue now to start speaking a little bit more about your family and your kids. You had your first son in 1972. Did you know you always wanted to have kids?
Yes. Yes. I always wanted to have my own family.
Do you know why?
I just wanted to have children. I mean, I had a brother who had children, I had a sister who had children. I wanted to have children too. I wanted somebody to call me mommy. It was good. I'm very happy. I'm very proud of my kids. I think each one did well so far. Um,
What did it mean to you the first time you got called mom or mommy by one of your kids?
uh, it's such a heartwarming feeling that you have a child, to have a child because, you'd walk outside and someone would say, oh, he looks like you, oh, he looks like your husband, whatever the case may be. And it meant a lot to have, I was just happy. I had friends who had to adopt because they couldn't have any, or friends who kept trying and couldn't have any children. So it was nice because you have somebody to help or look forward to being with. I guess maybe that's why. I don't know.
Did you raise your kids based on how your parents raised you?
Kind of, only, I took them away a little bit more. I tried to give them vacations and give them extra things, but my parents at that point used to help me too, because they were, I guess, in better shape financially than when we were kids. And it worked out nice. I have a brother who did very well with his career financially, and he helped them so they could afford to do things that they couldn't do when we were young. And I wanted to make sure I gave to my kids the things that I couldn't do when I was young. My parents couldn't do for me, but
What
always made us happy. I used to sit on my father's lap and comb his hair when I was a little girl. And he just used to sit there and let me do it while he was watching TV. He had very little hair too. He had very thin hair, but he let me sit there. And now when I see when my kids were little and they wanted to comb my hair or comb my husband's hair, I thought that was cute because it reminded me of me being little again. You know, but they've traveled. I made sure they went to college. I wanted everyone to live away when they went to college. I didn't want them living home. I thought living away was a good experience because I didn't have it. And you become so attached that when things happen to you, uh, your parent, a parent or both parents, your heart's broken because you're so used to them being with you all the time. So I wanted to make sure my kids were a little bit more independent. So they had to go away to school, make new friends.
When you and your husband were getting started as new parents, what roles did you each pick up around the house and with the kids?
I used to cook a little bit more then than I do now, but uh, I used to help with their homework a little bit, and my husband would also, depending on what it was. The math I'd let him take care of because I taught reading. I wasn't a big math person, but we did that. Brought them to whatever activity they wanted to go to, whether it be swimming, basketball, soccer, football, whatever we could do to get them involved. I always thought sports was a big portion of growing up and good to have, especially if you wanted to go to college, to do something in college, sports related, which I did, I had children that didn't do things in college. And it just kind of all worked out.
After your first son, you had another boy in 1980.
Yes.
There was about an 8-year gap between your first son and your second.
Yeah.
Why was that long gap?
It just wasn't working. I couldn't get pregnant. My first son used to come to church and pray for a brother or sister. We used to sit in church and mommy needs another baby. He used to tell the God. It was cute. And then we had one boy, and then 18 months later, I had another boy, which was nice. And then for a while, I wasn't getting pregnant again, and I wanted to have a girl. I was hoping. And when I finally did get pregnant with my last child, I told the doctor not to tell me the sex because I had to have a special test because I wasn't as young as I was when I had my first son. And I said, don't tell me. I want to be surprised.
And what gender was your last kid?
A female. I had
How
three
did it
boys
feel?
and
How'd it feel to finally have a daughter?
I was so excited. We had bows in her hair in the hospital. Even the nurses knew. The nurses knew me because I had the same doctor, and they used to put a bow in her hair. At that time, you were in the hospital for like a week. Now you spend overnight and they send you home. But yeah,
Do you remember, because you said that you wanted to have a baby girl, even after you had even after you had a few sons. Why did you want a daughter?
because I think most parents want both sexes as a child, to have as children. Uh, I loved my sons and they were good. They are still good. And then I wanted a girl too.
Before you did have your daughter, how did it feel having four men in the house?
But there used to be a program on called Fred McMurray, My Three Sons. It was a situation comedy every week. That's what I called them, My Three Sons. I felt like we were Fred McMurray and his wife because the boys did things together, even though there was a gap with the first and the second. The other two, the two middle boys, were very close in age. Oh, they used to go on a baseball field, and all of a sudden you'd see them fighting. So I'd make believe I didn't know whose kids they were. They used to fist fight in center field, but turns out they calmed down and became good friends. Yeah.
After you did have your daughter, you had four kids, just
Mhm.
like your parents.
Mhm.
How did that make you feel?
I would have liked to have had a sister for my daughter, but that didn't work at all. I guess I must have been too up there in age. But because I had a sister, and it was very nice having a sister.
What was nice about it?
I used to look up to her. We were never really good friends growing up because she was so much older than I was. But once I got married, she had her kids and then I had mine. We became closer because she used to help me, give me advice. I used to go visit. She didn't live in Hoboken because she taught in a different town, and her husband taught, and they moved to the town where he grew up. And we used to go. I used to take my mother like at least once a week. We'd spend a couple of hours visiting her and her kids. And it was just nice to have someone to call and say, what should I do with this? What should I do about that? If you needed um, some kind of knowledge to help you with raising kids, because it's not the easiest thing in the world. You try your best, but she used to help me.
Do you remember any kind of more specific questions that you would ask, or any moments where you thought, you just counted your blessings for your sister when it came to answering questions about motherhood?
Oh, yeah, several. I used to ask her, what about this formula? Should I switch? What should I do? And she was very helpful. I mean, even up to what should I wear to that party that I have to go to? What do you think? I used to show her two things what do you think? Which one should I wear? She was very helpful. Yeah. I miss her now, and now I'm friendly. She has a daughter who's I christened, and I'm friendly with her, and I talk to her about once a week. And she asks me a lot of questions about her kids, and we're just good friends too. It's just having a sister or a brother. It's still nice not being an only child. There's so many people I know that are only children, and that's tough. I mean, yes, you get treated royally, but it's nice having a sibling with you.
Throughout the interview, your faith has come up a few times. You mentioned that when you were a little girl, you and your family would go to mass together. You also mentioned that your family would go to mass together your own children, your family would go to mass together. Uh, I know that you're Catholic. I know you've always been Catholic. I know that your family was Catholic.
Mhm.
Was your family always Catholic?
Yes. And my mother used to go to, and father both, used to go to church every morning when I was little, littler, not little. Growing up, my mother was never there at, I have to wait until my father used to go to 7 o'clock mass in the morning. And then my mother used to go to 7:30 or 8. It was quick masses, but I knew where I could find them when I looked for them. And every Sunday or Saturday, we make sure we go to mass.
And how often were you going to church in high school?
In high school, I used to go, sometimes I used to go and tell my parents I was going and go out for breakfast with the other friends, you know, which wasn't good, but I did then. You do those things, I guess. And then all of a sudden you outgrow that and you want to go to church each week. You don't want to miss. I even go to church when I'm away on vacation. In Aruba, every time I went, I made sure I found a church to go to for Sunday Mass. In Puerto Rico, no matter where I went to, Florida. Hmm.
What were some of the motivating factors behind going to mass more often as you got older?
Well, I guess you pray for different things as you get older, and you realize the more you pray to God, the more He answers prayers, or He tries to.
What were some things you would pray for
You
as you
know,
got older?
I used to pray for uh, good health, obviously making sure I could afford everything that we did. Um, Always good health for my family, though, my husband, my kids, my parents. And you felt that if you prayed for something like good health for you or this, your husband, and they got healthier, it's God answered my prayer, see, because I prayed. So that makes you feel like God does answer your prayers. And
And you
now,
still go to church now?
yes, and I belong to church groups now. So I just joined, I'm in process of joining a group out of my church. It's the St. Anne's Guild. It's all ladies, and they meet right now once a month. I have to go to mass and meet afterward. And then when they take our saint down in July is her anniversary, St. Anne, the patron saint of the church. Uh, you wear, the guild wears white dresses and puts a sash, St. Anne's Guild. And even years ago when my first son was little, and every year after that, I used to carry the saint during the procession. I
I
went
want
up.
to ask you some more questions about St. Anne.
Mhm.
For that, you mentioned that you're still going to mass now regularly. Do you find yourself praying for different things today than you have in the past?
I don't know, mainly health, just mainly health, whether it be for my siblings, my children, my grandchildren, myself, whomever, because as you get older, you see a lot of things happen. So you pray that God watches everybody, a good education, let them do well in whatever they're striving for, I guess.
Now, talking about St. Anne, you mentioned that she's the patron saint of your church.
Mhm.
And you mentioned that you've had a lot of involvement with your church. Uh, who is St. Anne?
She's the patron saint of the mother and mother to be, because the Blessed Virgin is her daughter, and the
The
Blessed
Blessed
Virgin
Virgin is
had Jesus. That's Jesus's mother. So
Mother Mary.
yes,
When you were growing up, was St. Anne an important character, an important figure to you?
Oh, growing up, my whole family, we were just St. Anne people that, don't, whether you donate like to the feast or donate time, donate money, it's just something becomes a part of your life. And as you get older, the older you get, the more you realize you don't have that much time that you're going to be spending here. So you pray that St. Anne and her daughter, Mary, and Jesus watch over you and keep you healthy, or, you know, keep you close to them.
Who was Saint Anne to you personally?
It was the saint I always prayed to. I used to pray to her to have a child. I used to pray to her to make my child healthy and get to this college, get to, some material things you pray for too sometimes. But the only thing I probably didn't succeed in is I don't know if all my children, I mean, they all believe in God, but I don't think, they're church goers where I believe in it. It's
You
just
mentioned a feast for Saint Anne that
mhm.
your church does. Can you tell me a little bit more about this feast?
In July, her feast day is July 26th. So whatever day of the week it falls on, that's the day they take the saint out. But they'll probably start the feast on the 20th. And they have, excuse me, stands where you can buy sandwiches, sausage sandwiches, and zabelas, and they have a band, and they have some chances that you could take, throw the ball in the net and things that you do if you have kids. And then they have a bar behind church where you have to pay and you socialize with other parishioners. You know, I put her picture in my door during the feast every year and in my windows. Um, um, and when she does go out, all the children know to touch her cape. That's like a special blessing.
Why was the touching the cape important? Do you know where that came from?
Uh, it's what we grew up with. When St. Anne came out, you always touched her cape. When they take St. Anne out, the day they take her out, I ask them to come down. I give them money and ask them to come down the block to my house, and they turn St. Anne to my house. And my grandchildren, whatever grandchildren are there, have to be picked up so they can touch her cape. They're used to it now. But yeah.
When I would go to the festival when I was little,
Mhm.
I remember that they would carry the statue of Anne out of the church, and that this typically made you pretty emotional.
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about why you would feel that way?
Because it's something that has been instilled all your life, St. Anne coming down the stairs. It's so moving. It really is. Uh, you just, I think about how my mother used to stand there with me, and she's no longer here to do that. And my brother used to stand there, and he's no longer. We all stood in front of church and watched her come down. And now, who was ever with me, we go to at 5, like they usually take her out after 12 o'clock, 11:30 mass. So they take her out 12:30, 1 o'clock, and 5:30, 6 o'clock, they bring her back. They bring her back in backwards so that she's facing you when they bring her in. And they hold the saint at the top of the stairs. The men do that then because the women can't carry her up the stairs. And the band plays "Oh Good Saint Anne," which is her song. And that too is an emotional time because you did it this year. The help of God, you'll be able to see it again next year because sometimes it doesn't happen. People that were with us last year, you know, weren't with us this year.
When when the pandemic was going on, would your church still do the feast?
Yeah, they did. They did have it. I'm almost positive we had it. Yeah. I don't think they ever didn't have the feast. The feast, it's a Catholic church, so they rely on making money, and they make a lot of money with the feast. Last year, they did a 50-50, and the person who won $41,000, you know, by a $10 chance and maybe win that. That's a lot of money to win. But they make money, the church, with the feast. And everybody's always been a part of it, you
How
know.
many people does the feast typically bring in, would you say?
Gosh, sometimes when the saint first comes out, people come from wherever they would live, if they were once part of Saint Anne, to see her come out and walk with her. Sometimes there's 100 people. And then, as you're walking, because it's summer, it dwindles down by the time she goes in. But then in front of church, when they take her in, it's packed again with people. When they take her out, when they take her in. St. Francis does that with a saint that they have, not St. Anne, Madonna della Madre. That's a different saint, but it's beautiful. It's just how you get used to praying to things. In St. Francis Church, they have a saint called St. Rita, the saint for the impossible. She looks like St. Teresa of the Roses. It's not. It's the first time I saw it, and I have prayer cards, and you pray for things that are impossible. Yeah. Growing up, I guess it's like going to school and being Catholic, and being Catholic's like just a way of life for us. I've grown up with it.
A lot of the people you grew up with, too, the people you went to mass with when you were younger, are they around in Hoboken and around in the community? Does the feast bring them in?
Peace brings people in that no longer live here, and the ones that are alive do come. Problem is, a lot of the people that I grew up with are my age or older, maybe a little younger, and they're no longer with us. But their kids come and their relatives come. Yeah, it's good.
Did you find that a lot of people you grew up with and a lot of that community stay around? Or did a lot of people move? Do you think it was maybe kind of a healthy mix?
Now, a lot of people stay, but depending on a lot of the people whom they married, their spouses, and where they wanted to raise the kids. Hoboken years ago, as I said, was a way of life for me because my parents were from Hoboken. They got married at a St. Anne's church, same as I did. Um, but it is a way of life for you after a while, so that it just, I'm glad I still live here. And some people do come back to visit. A lot of people come back for the day of the feast or during the feast to visit because they sit in the back and eat zapelas or whatever, food, and talk. And the church is always open for people who want to light a candle to her to pray for certain things.
To St. Anne?
Yeah, you buy a candle, they charge, I think it's $5 a candle, and you bring it to the front of the church, and I put it in front of the Blessed Mother, and I light it, and it stays there for the week.
At the beginning of the interview, I had described you as a former educator, a current real estate agent, and a proud grandmother. How would
Mhm.
you describe yourself?
As a lady who's getting old, unfortunately, no, I guess I am a former teacher, and I am a realtor, and a churchgoer, and a grandma, and I love my kids. I love my grandchildren. I keep wanting one of my kids to have 10th. I have 9, but I like round numbers. Nobody wanted to go back for another.
Looking back on everything you've accomplished in your life, what is the thing you're proudest of?
I guess my children and what they've become, especially now since I no longer have my spouse. Uh, my kids have been very good to me, you know. Uh, I can't live with anybody. I want to be in Hoboken. None of my kids don't really live in Hoboken except my daughter. But it was always so nice to have people around. I used to love big Christmases and Christmas morning growing up. I loved it growing up, and I loved it when I had, my husband, and we used to have the family come over. It's always good.
As we close our interview, thank you for sharing your story with me and our audience. I was
Well,
honored to hear your story. I'm excited about the impact it will have.
thank you. Truthfully, it's just, I believe in faith and prayer, and I think it helps sometimes. I hope it helps.